2012 was an insane year for gaming. And you can't talk about insanity without talking about...
Did I ever tell you the definition of insanity?
Skyrim with Guns, aka Far Cry 3, was easily one of the best and most influential games in all of its creator Ubisoft's library. While the Ubisoft formula of open worlds with radio towers you have to climb is certainly played out by today's standards, back then, it was fresh and new. Not only was Far Cry 3 a solid first-person shooter with tons of upgrades and customization, what's more is, it had a story that was a surprisingly well-done tale about the glorification of violence and what being desensitized to that level of brutality can do to a person. The game was super successful, no doubt in part because Ubisoft did a ton of crazy marketing tricks to promote the game, including a 4-part live-action web series, various companion apps, and a booth at PAX East 2012 where you could get a free copy of the game if you got your head shaved to look like the game's most iconic antagonist, Vaas.
Hello?
Far Cry 3 wasn't the only shooter filled with personality to come out in 2012, because Nintendo threw their hat in the mix with Kid Icarus Uprising. Kid Icarus for the past 21 years had been a dead franchise, with its only bit of relevancy coming from its protagonist Pit being included in the Super Smash Bros. Brawl roster 4 years earlier. However, randomly the series came back with an all-new on-rails third-person shooter gameplay style. If you don't mind your hand snapping in half, it's a fun game that definitely deserves a remaster. It had plenty of personality and charm, and it also had voice acting.
Remember, Pit, you won't be fighting alone out there.
You're going to send me a machine gun robot girlfriend?
No, I'll be guiding you on your journey.
That's manager speak for fighting alone.
Having a game be fully voiced is odd for Nintendo, even to this day. Kid Icarus wasn't the only Nintendo franchise to do something odd, because Pokemon came out with a brand new duo of games, Pokemon Black 2 and Pokemon White 2. Now, as Pokemon fans at the time, we were expecting Game Freak to do what they always do and release a third version to go along with Pokemon Black and White, which most fans thought would be called Pokemon Gray version. However, we got hit with the curveball of the decade in Black 2 and White 2, direct sequels to the original Black and White. I'm not gonna lie, I thought this was the dumbest thing ever. Not only was it not Pokemon Gray, it wasn't a set of remakes like we'd been getting for the past 2 generations, but eventually, I decided to pick up Black 2, and the reason has nothing to do with the game. It was the animated special movie released on Pokemon's YouTube channel. It was so cool to see moments from the game and crispy animation done by the animators of the regular Pokemon anime, OLM. The regular Pokemon anime, it was cool, right? But you have to keep in mind, we had been watching Ash Ketchum's adventures for over 10 years at this point. It was getting old. I already clocked out of the anime midway through the Diamond and Pearl arc. So this animation was a sweet surprise that got me hyped for the game. And the icing on the cake was Black 2 and White 2 were actually good games. They brought back a lot of fan favorite Pokemon and characters. It really felt like a game made for fans, and it was a nice send-off to the original 2D age of Pokemon. If Pokemon was a little too kiddie for you, then don't worry, because we got another game series about collecting a bunch of powerful creatures, Persona. After years of obscurity, the Persona series had finally begun to hit its stride following the release of Persona 3 and especially Persona 4. The series had switched from a more straightforward JRPG to a time management dating sim JRPG. In 2012, fans ended up getting a Persona 4 fighting game developed by the kings of anime fighters Arc System Works. Japan got a remake of Persona 2 Eternal Punishment for the PSP, and we also got an updated version of Persona 4 called Persona 4 Golden, which added in a ton of new content, including new personas, a new character, and a completely new ending. Persona 4 Golden ended up becoming one of the signature titles of the oh yeah, that thing that existed. While the PS Vita was released at the very tail end of 2011 in Japan, the West got it a bit later in 2012. For this video, I'm only going to be talking about games that were originally released in 2012. So sorry Xenoblade fans, but I can make an exception for this case since this is a console. The PlayStation Vita was Sony's successor to the popular PlayStation Portable handheld console. It had an OLED touchscreen, 2 analog sticks, and was quite powerful for a handheld system at the time. However, the system failed to ever really catch on, well, at least outside of Japan. As for why the system ended up failing, honestly, I don't know if I can pinpoint one reason. It could be because it came out around the time smartphones boomed in popularity, cutting into the Vita's market share. It could be because of the cost of buying one. It could be because Sony, being Sony, tried to force people to use their expensive proprietary memory cards. It could be because there just weren't any games for it. Name 5 Vita exclusive games. I'll wait. One possible explanation I have is the Vita had the wrong idea about mobile gaming. The Vita, at least the way I saw it, seemed like it wanted to be a portable powerhouse, able to provide home console-like experiences on the go, but most people don't need that. I'm sure there are some people who'd really like to have big AAA games on the go, but if I'm on the bus or killing time on my work break or taking a dump, I don't want to play Uncharted, I want to play Animal Crossing. Something casual, quick, and easy I can turn on for a few minutes and then forget about. I guess the silver lining in all this is at least the Vita wasn't the only flop of a console in 2012.
Wii owners and newcomers alike, it's time to play Wii U.
Ah, the Nintendo Wii U. It had promise. The gamepad was a really cool controller that allowed you to play some games on the go. And by on the go, I mean 5 feet from your TV. There was a big buzz about asymmetrical gaming, where some multiplayer games had one player use the gamepad and the other players used the screen to allow for unique experiences, like Luigi's Ghost Mansion, a minigame in Nintendo Land where 4 players using Wii remotes play as ghost hunters chasing down an invisible ghost, and one player uses the gamepad and plays as said ghost who's trying to sneak around, scaring the hunters, causing them to pass out. The Wii U also had backwards compatibility with Wii games, even allowing you to use Wii remotes as controllers in some games. Nintendo knew they had lost much of the hardcore gaming market with the more casual Wii console, so they tried to market the Wii U as being friendly to the more dedicated gamers by launching with ports of big titles like Assassin's Creed 3, Call of Duty Black Ops 2, and Batman Arkham City. But unfortunately, the damage had already been done. The Wii U struggled to get strong third-party support. Case in point, Nintendo's brand new third-party game that was meant to push the Wii U sales when it first came out was ZombiU, which was unique for the way it used the gamepad to manage your items in real time and its neat permadeath system, but ultimately it ended up being an underwhelming survival horror game. If you had to nail down why the Wii U ended up being a commercial failure, first, the branding. By this point, people were done with the Wii. The Wii brand had become synonymous with casual, gimmicky shovelware games, and while yes, the Wii U wasn't the Wii, it was a brand new console, the thing is, tons of people thought it was an add-on for the Wii that equipped it with a tablet. Second, there's how weak the console was. Within a year, it was outclassed by the PS4 and the Xbox One. That put the console in a weird spot where it wasn't casual enough to appeal to dads and grandmas, but it also wasn't powerful enough to draw in a more hardcore crowd. Finally, as usual, the game library just wasn't there. The biggest game at launch was another new Super Mario Bros. Game, which people were already tired of. They had already released New Super Mario Bros. 2 earlier that year, and even that game was already seen as one of the most boring, pointless sequels Nintendo had released in a while. The summer of the following year, we got Pikmin 3, which, you know, it's Pikmin, not exactly a system seller. Then we got another Mario game, Super Mario 3D World, in November of 2013, which was a really good game and was definitely more interesting than another new Super Mario Bros. Game, but people wanted another sandbox 3D Mario game along the lines of Mario 64 or Sunshine. We didn't get Mario Kart 8 until the middle of 2014, and we didn't get Smash until the end of 2014. And I think releasing the game for the 3DS probably hurt the sales for the Wii U version, especially if you consider that the 3DS version vastly outsold the Wii U version. The nail in the coffin was the lack of a new Zelda game, and when one eventually did come out, it was also released on the new Nintendo Switch, which provided little reason to get the outdated last-gen version. Outside of a cool new IP or two, Wii U owners were left with a lot of re-releases of older games, one of those being Mass Effect 3. I'm gonna be honest, I don't know the first thing about Mass Effect, but I do know that everyone hated the ending for Mass Effect 3. It's sad to hear, since this was not only the highly anticipated conclusion to the Mass Effect trilogy, but the conclusion to one of the most iconic series of the 7th generation of consoles. Mass Effect was well known for its story that changed based on your decisions and the ability to transfer your save to later games, allowing you to continue your story in the sequels. These were two game mechanics that would become staples of Telltale's The Walking Dead. 2012 saw the release of the first season of Telltale's landmark story-driven adventure series, The Walking Dead. One of the most interesting things about this game's release is that when it came out, it wasn't finished. And I don't mean like, oh, it had tons of bugs and glitches. No, like literally only a fifth of the game was released when it first came out. Telltale released the game in episodes, with each one being released only about 2 months after the previous one. This was a fantastic decision for 3 reasons. It was a great way to introduce new players to the game. No one wants to drop a ton of money on a game they might not like, so releasing the game's episodes individually for only $5 a pop was a great deal. And if you were willing to take the plunge and buy the whole thing, it was at a discount for only $20, as opposed to the $25 you'd have to pay to buy each episode individually. It was a great way to build hype. When a hot new game drops, everyone is talking about it. But within the next few months after its release, it's already faded into the background while new games take its place in the spotlight. The Walking Dead being released in 2-month intervals allowed the game to never die. Every couple of months there was new content to get excited about. Finally, it allowed Telltale to change the game based on feedback from the players in real time. Whenever you made a choice in the story, the game would send your decision to Telltale servers, so the devs could see what players were doing and adjust. For the most part, there isn't a right or wrong way to play The Walking Dead. There's no meters telling you what alignment you're on or whether you've made a good or evil decision. Every decision is a matter of perspective. All in all, The Walking Dead was a great game with an engaging narrative that really showed the potential for storytelling in video games. There were a ton of impactful games in 2012, too many to talk about in a single video. So this won't be a single video. Stay tuned for part 2.